The first panel starts out with Sonic being naturally faster than lightning. Okay, whatever, I'm gonna accept it by now. Comic rules are different. But how the hell do they expect me to believe he stays dry just by running fast? There will always be a raindrop occupying every physical space of the air during a storm. He's gonna run into raindrops eventually. This is just insulting to my intelligence. Whatever magic spell he's casting to keep himself dry when he's running has nothing to do with the speed. Maybe it's an invisible bubble shield or something, I don't know. A frog is about to get buried under the landslide and Sonic saves it. The frog says Sonic must be a magical being, and somehow Sonic says he's not magical despite, breaking all laws of physics on a regular basis. Besides, wouldn't Mobians know about chaos energy? Wouldn't he know that he has chaos energy that's letting him speak sound and stuff? The magical frog gives Sonic magical stones for great strength, body elasticity, and leaping a great distance, which I'm sure this overpowered version of Sonic can already do on its own. Why the hell did Sonic not believe the magical stones were magical when he literally summoned them from above and they dropped on his head? This is the stupidest Sonic's ever looked. The stones can only be used once, as a good way of balancing out their power and preventing them from being misused too much. At least he's nice enough to give them to Tails as good luck stones instead of throwing them away immediately. Eggman spots Sonic and his friends driving a vehicle in the Forbidden Zone and knocks them out of the car. Good thing Rotor was the one driving. That makes no sense. Since he's the tallest among them, I consider him to be basically the adult of the group. So he's the only one who should logically have a driver's license. I would have nitpicked this otherwise. Surprise, surprise! It turns out the magical stones in this fantasy universe really are magical. Who knew? This makes Sonic look like an arbitrarily skeptical idiot for not believing in them. Seriously, you'd expect Sonic to be more open-minded, especially considering he's got magic powers himself. Eggman's about to rush him with a boulder before he uses the redstone for body elasticity, and that somehow prevents him from getting hurt. I'm surprised Antoine fainted at seeing him almost get crushed, instead of cheering or something. Guess he'd react like that if he saw anyone experience that. And the conflict of Sonic trying to use the stones is pretty logical, rather than making Sonic look like a genuine idiot. In fact, even I forgot which stone does which right away. It makes perfect sense that Sonic would forget which stone has which power to it, since it's totally unintuitive. It's not like the stones are associated with elemental powers and color-coded as you'd expect. This is an interesting and unique source of tension and challenge. Much better than just having magical stones, and without even having clearly defined power to them at that. In fact, I like these better than the Chaos Emeralds as a story device, because they have clearly defined powers and limits, while Chaos Emeralds can do pretty much anything. Well, I don't really like them better since them only being able to be used once is pretty lame and restrictive, but in a story sense, in a one-episode story sense, that at least creates a much better tension. Wow, Sally's really quick to just assume Sonic's going to abandon his friends. This is a running theme. She really doesn't have any faith in him. While the Freedom Fighters are being carried away by the pincers of the Beetobot, Sonic uses his stone of strength and his creativity to carve a big slab of rock from a boulder and use a tree trunk as well. After a genuinely badass one-liner, he smacks the tree trunk attached to a stone slab into Eggman and causes the thing to fall awesomely, and then catches the thing to save the Freedom Fighters. I find it a little weird that super strength apparently means he can catch a falling giant object without his wrist breaking from the sheer impact with it. But I guess that's what super strength entails. Not just lifting things, but also reinforcement of the hand to a supernatural degree. And the ending of the story is pretty funny. It makes perfect sense, with Sonic spending all day talking to frogs because they all look just like the one they saved earlier. Why was the magical frog so special anyways? What's his story? And this is how you do comedy right. The funny situations coming naturally and logically from the situation and rules, rather than having characters break the fourth wall and make puns for no reason. I still didn't laugh, but it was completely harmless. This was a great story. It is pretty disappointing though, that despite the magical stones being given to Tails, Tails wasn't given his moment in the sun by being allowed to use said stones. At least have him help out. Instead, Tails being given the stones was completely pointless and disappointing. The first story was written by Angelo, and I had to look that up because it doesn't tell you in the comic anywhere. What's the Big Idea? Or rather, What's a Big Idea? Which is written by Mike Kantarovich and Ken Penders, It's basically a story about giving more life to Rotor and showing what he does in his spare time by showing all the other freedom fighters reminiscing of the wacky failed inventions that Rotor's made, and wondering what he's making showing off their creativity. I don't like the idea that Rotor even can make a whole bunch of failed inventions at all, since it makes no sense. If he's smart enough to make inventions, why would they fail to work the way he expects them to? The ending of the story is really stupid though, as Rotor's invention is a regular old thermos, which has already been invented. And then Sonic and Sally idiotically say it'll never catch on when thermoses already exist in this world. And then they break the fourth wall and advertise Sonic the Hedgehog thermoses and lunchboxes. Talk about a sour ending. This is easily the stupidest thing Sally's ever said. Granted, Sonic said it too, because apparently two complete opposites can say the exact same thing on a whim. But Sally's supposed to be smarter than Sonic. And I don't know about Bunny dismissing a giant computer as frivolous. I know she's supposed to be a southern yokel, but she's also supposed to be smart. I guess she's thinking in a practical sense, like the computer isn't benefiting the freedom fighters actively, but still, a computer is hardly frivolous. Other than that, it was a charming filler. Well, aside from Tails going, it's science, who knows, we're talking about a computer. Making Sonic think that light bulbs go bad is pretty insulting to his character, though. He's not supposed to be a total idiot, just reckless. The next story is called Animal Magnetism. You know, it's kind of bad form to have the biggest spoiler ever be the title of the story. It's like naming a Star Wars film Luke is Vader's son. Anyways, we start out with Eggman and Snively watching footage of Bunny using her extendable robot legs to heartwarmingly help Tails use his broken tree swing, showing a nice bonding moment between them. Come to think of it, why are her legs extendable in the first place? What kind of work were they intending for her to do as a roboticized slave that would require extendable legs? It's especially confusing since Robian's like Uncle Chuck don't have legs like this, and also didn't look metallic at all like Bunny's legs in the early comic. Eggman complains about the sweet moment between his enemies, and plans on using Bunny's uniqueness against her. Why the hell did Snively feel the need to tell Eggman about Bunny as if he didn't already know about her? You'd think Snively would have remembered her from the story where she and Sally had them tied up listening to dolls themselves talk about girl power for hours. At least one of the freedom fighters points out that it might not be safe to have an outdoor barbecue in their situation. But what's the point of having two people at once watching the skies for Eggman's chips if they're both looking in the same direction? They're both right beside each other and everything, so it's about as effective as having only one of them. You'd think Sally, the brilliant tactician, would have thought of this. And finally, the plot starts getting exciting, and Bunny starts being sent away by a huge magnet that takes away the rest of the metal. I'm surprised it took this long for Eggman to think of this plan. Wait, she's in a dangerous situation. Why is she making a pun? This just completely takes you out of it. And I thought they were mostly done with that emphasis on forced comedy. Fortunately, Sonic being hit by a flying can doesn't injure him and knock him out, but instead gives him an idea. He pulls this lid from the limited area of the magnetic field and races out into the fields, luring Eggman up to him while holding the garbage can lid. And then he causes Eggman's machine to face Robotropolis to be completely covered in metal. Wait, what? What did we say, Bunny? Oh, right, she was holding onto a tree the entire time off screen. Good thing, too. And the episode ends with Bunny's metal legs being made unmagnetic with some sort of special solution of Rotor's. So it addresses a big concern of Bunny's legs being made of metal in a logical way, dedicating a story to it and fixing the problem. It's good that they did this instead of... It's a good thing that they actually did this and addressed the concern in at least one story, instead of never addressing the concern that her legs might be able to be magnetized. This was another pretty great issue, and it's also written by Angelo.